Good afternoon, parents and families. My name is Tyler Barker. I serve as the coordinator within the Office of Parent and Family Programs here at Georgia Tech. I would like to welcome you to our What's Buzzin' at Georgia Tech webinar series. We are so thankful to have you here today, tuning in about Georgia Tech history and traditions. As you can imagine, we pride ourselves on traditions that have lasted many generations and will last many generations to come. And so today we have two very special guests. We have Janet Kinard, who is the Vice President for Engagement, and also Connor Creech, who is a young alumni, class of 2017. And so they are here with us today. If you have any questions for Janet or Connor, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box and just drop those questions in there. Once again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box. If you give me a few moments, we'll get started with our presentation.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Tyler, so much. As Tyler mentioned, my name is Janet. I'm the Vice President for Engagement at the Alumni Association. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys today. And I am joined by my colleague, and I'll have him just introduce himself quickly in just a moment. But I am a two-time alum of Georgia Tech. I have a textile engineering and mechanical engineering degrees, and I now work at the Alumni Association, which I'm thrilled to do. And my team works with alumni of all ages, including alumni that are soon to be alumni. So all of our student programs are under my department as well. And if you'd like to join us again tomorrow, my student team will be presenting about our Student Alumni Association. But I graduated quite some time ago, so I brought my colleague Connor to answer and help answer questions about if you have any questions about what it is like to be a student on campus today. So Connor, you want to quickly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name is Connor Creech. I'm only a one-time alum of Georgia Tech, so Janet's got that on me. I also work for the Alumni Association. I'm in charge of email marketing. So any emails you get asking you to give us money, those are all directly from me. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance for that. Yeah, so that's me.
Thanks, Connor. All right, so feel free to drop any questions into the chat, and we'll go from there. We'll probably answer most of them at the end, but we'll answer a few along the way. This presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the history and traditions and how we've gotten to those traditions and what they mean for student life on campus. This presentation was modeled after one that our Director of Living History, Marilyn Summers, has been giving for years. She built the program, and she's an oral historian and has built the program and has done over 1,100 interviews with alumni. And it's a pretty amazing group of or body of work that she's put together, and really gives us a sense of what life has been like for our students over time. So big shoes to fill giving her presentation, but I'm happy to do it. I want to start by saying happy birthday, Georgia Tech. It was actually this day, October 13th in 1885, that the state legislature here in Georgia appropriated $65,000 for the establishment of a technical school, which became Georgia Tech. And so happy birthday. We opened our doors in 1888, and I'm going to first talk about some of the traditions on campus and go through those in a timeline that they were introduced. So Tyler, if you want to go to the next screen, we'll talk about the very first one. The whistle. So you guys all got a chance to hear our oldest running tradition, and was actually introduced when the school opened in 1888. It was on the shop building, which was one of the original buildings. The shop building burned down twice. So after it burned down the second time, they decided not to rebuild it in its location. And the whistle was moved to its current location in 1923. It is meant to mimic the industrial whistles of the time because, of course, we were training students to be in technical fields. So many of them would be working in the new industries coming to the South. The South at the time, of course, right after the Civil War, was moving from an agrarian society to an industrial society. And this was Georgia Tech was part of the fabric of making that happen. So the whistle, as I said, is our oldest tradition and continues to blow today. And it is the same whistle that blew in 1888 that blows today, but now it is controlled by a clock that is set to have it go off at the changing of classes. It has been stolen in the past, and you'll hear a little bit more about other traditions about stealing things on campus. And it was stolen first in 1905, and the then dean, John Kuhn, said, okay, well, every student here is going to put a nickel on my desk every day until that whistle gets returned because it's so expensive we can't afford to buy a new one. And sure enough, that whistle came back pretty darn quickly because a nickel was quite a bit of money at the time. For anyone who lives in Atlanta or near campus, the whistle is also a part of your life. You don't have to be a student for it to be a part of your life. I happen to live really close to campus, and for many years could set my watch and know that it was 5 till the hour when the whistle went off. They changed that schedule a couple of years ago to reflect the campus getting bigger, and that really threw a lot of us off, but we're very used to it. And I forget what the schedule is. It's not far from my window, and so you might hear it during this presentation. Thank you, Tyler. We'll go to the next one, which is our next tradition that was the next in line. So homecoming. We are actually in homecoming week, and so it looks very different this year. But homecoming was established in 1920 when the Alumni Association reorganized itself, and we had alumni come from all over the country and join us back on campus. The great thing about homecoming is that it actually incorporates a lot of other traditions that we have, and that are traditions that happen at homecoming and at other times of the year. So you can see we've got the Mini 500, which is the picture up in the upper right-hand corner of the gentleman on tricycles. And then down in the lower, you see a black and white photo of the cake race. The cake race actually predates homecoming and started in 1911 as a cross-country run. It's called the cake race because the faculty members' wives at the time baked cakes for the winners of the race. It was incorporated into homecoming in 1935 and still is run, the freshman cake race. It was run this year, and they worked on a strict schedule to keep people distanced and safe. So it is a tradition we keep strong. You'll also see the wreck that we have, not the Ramblin Wreck, which is showing in a looping video in the center, but we have the wreck that is part of the Ramblin Wreck parade. That was incorporated into homecoming in 1932. The students had a great idea to have a race, a road race between Atlanta and Athens. It was a rivalry at the time and still is. So they were going to race their cars from here to Athens, and the dean at the time, Floyd Field, felt that that was just too dangerous. So he suggested that they have a race on campus or a parade of contraptions. And so now the rec parade actually includes classic cars. It includes contraptions that are built. And it's certainly a fun parade to watch. Again, it did happen this year and happened in a little bit of a different setting. They usually hold it the morning of homecoming, but this year they did it last weekend and recorded it, and it will be broadcast before the game on Saturday. So be sure to check that out. We also have other traditions in there. Mr. and Mrs. Georgia Tech are named during the homecoming game, and the 20th, 40th, and 50th reunions happen, as well as a lot of other alumni activities across campus. So it's been an exciting time. So now you've seen the looping video of the wreck. We'll talk about that in the next slide as our next tradition. So the Ramblin Wreck, which is a car, is one of our 2 mascots, so that's a little bit unusual. We acquired the Ramblin Wreck in 1961. It's a 1930 Model A Ford and was donated by an alum, Captain Ted Johnson. It was actually parked on campus as a restored car. He was visiting his son, and the dean at the time, Dean Dull, basically forced Captain Ted Johnson to hand it over. And it is now what we use to bring out the team onto the field at every home game. They also visit many of our away games. And so you can see pictures of the wreck over the years. And the picture of our most recent driver, Abby, is in the driver's seat of the wreck. It is the car is maintained and driven by students. The Ramblin Wreck Club is our traditions keepers on campus, but they also maintain the car. And this year, it's interesting to note that Abby successfully lobbied and was approved for a special allowance to drive the car onto the field. They weren't allowing any non-athletics people on the field, and she was able to successfully do that. And there's only 2 mascots in the ACC that have been approved for that, us and FSU. So pretty cool. She said that she was willing to die on that hill to make sure that the wreck continues its tradition of driving the team out. So the next tradition started in the late 1960s in 1969, and it's stealing the tea. So if you've spent any time on campus, you've probably noticed there are no T's in any of the signs around campus. The Tech Tower, which you'll see in the original picture there without the Tech on it, stands as one of the tallest buildings on campus and stands on the hill and is the original building. It was originally built, one of the first buildings on campus, and it's currently the administration building, but at the time was the academic building. And at the time it was built in 1888, it was the tallest building in Atlanta. A lighted sign that said Tech was added to it in 1918. And then in the 1950s became the iteration that you see today, and we'll see a better picture of that later. But so, of course, as Georgia Tech students want to do, they had the grand idea of figuring out how to get to the top of that building and steal one of the letters. And so in 1969, the first group of students successfully stole the T. The T is often stolen from the east side because you can see that from the rest of Midtown Atlanta, but the north side has also been a location that they've stolen the T. The letters that are actually on the building now were replaced last year in 2019, and to replace them with more energy conserving LED lights. And it was actually pretty fun to walk across campus when it was happening because the T was frankly right there. You could have, if you could have picked up the 6 foot tall letters and run away with them, you could have. But yeah, so fun fact. And it actually has become, as you can tell, it's become a thing that the students steal the T across campus. And then we've also had students steal the T from other schools when we visited them for football. So it's a fun tradition that continues today. The next tradition is the Pi Mile Race. The Pi Mile Race started in 1973, which was, if you guys are local, you might know, it started 3 years after the Peachtree Road Race. Running was a fledgling sport, and it's one of the longest running 5Ks that we have in Atlanta. We did do it this year. It usually happens in the spring, and we were looking at the potential that it wasn't going to happen, which when you're the longest running 5K, you don't want to call it off. So we did run it virtually this year and had a great opportunity for everybody to share their photos of the run. It started in 1973 and was started by 56 students. George GRIFFIN, who it's named after, was the dean of students, beloved dean of students. He was here for a very long time, and students just loved him. And he was the track and cross country coach, including, in addition to being the dean of students. Excuse me, sorry. And so the race was named for him, and of course, Pi Mile, 3.14, the 5K distance. And now the official course is run mostly on roadways, but we have a course marked out all around campus. And so if you're walking around the perimeters of campus, you might see the medallions in the ground, but we have the Tyler Brown Pi Mile course. Tyler Brown was a student here, an SGA president, and during his time, he lobbied for a well-lit 5K course around campus. He ran every day as part of ROTC, and so he really worked to get a lighted course. He served in Iraq and was killed while serving in 2004, and the campus then worked to mark the Pi Mile course around campus, and it was dedicated to him in 2005. So then the next and final tradition we'll talk about is our second mascot, Buzz. So Buzz is our most recent mascot. He seems like he's so iconic and has been here forever, but he actually started in 1980. We'll hear in just a moment, we'll play a video, and you'll hear from Dr. Bland, who was the first Buzz, and it was him and his girlfriend's idea to create this costume. The Yellow Jackets, as our mascot was something that we were called for years, and we'll learn about that in a few slides. But this actual iconic Buzz, very animated mascot didn't show up until 1980. So just before we hear from the alumni themselves about what it was like being Buzz, they'll tell you a little bit about what it was like being inside that costume, as you can imagine. I met an alum a couple of years ago at an event in Pittsburgh, and I said, so how, what did you do while you were on campus? And he said, oh, I was the mascot. And I said, you mean you were a Buzz? I said, you can tell you've been away from campus long enough when you say you were the mascot rather than saying you were Buzz. Buzz is iconic and has won numerous mascot awards. So Tyler, I think there might be a play button at the bottom. We can hear directly from them.
There was a certain rush in doing that. It was exhilarating.
You have to be able to react. You see something happen and you just have to react in a way that is going to entertain people and in a way that's true to the character of Buzz.
Once you put the suit on, I mean, it sounds silly, but you're kind of worried or something else.
There was like several stages. Somebody who had never been close to Buzz goes through it. And the first is, there's Buzz. The second is, oh, he's coming over here. And the third is, oh, I'm getting a hug. And the fourth is, get away from me.
It could be 110 degrees on that football field. And I know I probably lost about 10 pounds in water weight every football game.
We prided ourselves that the character was Buzz, regardless of who was in it. We performed the character while we were in that suit.
Run out and you've kind of got every eye in the stadium kind of on you. When you do the push-ups for scoring, those were always fun.
Every time I was in the suit, it was surreal. It never got old.
All right, this is a fun video. Spike the football in the end zone. So Buzz, you can see, is quite adventurous. Buzz has also rappelled down a building here in Midtown that we did as an alumni association fundraising campaign a few years ago. So pretty impressive. So that's kind of the big traditions we have in our mascots and those iconic things that all Georgia Tech students know. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some notable people and give you a little bit of history about the people that have been part of this campus. We'll also talk about a couple of animals. So we'll talk more later about football and the traditions there, because it is really something that has really set the history of the Institute and has really set some of our traditions. But these are 4 notable people, and I'll spend most time talking about George. So Coach William Alexander was head coach following John HEISMAN, who we'll talk about in the football section. And he and Coach Bobby Dodd, shown here, both had huge winning streaks with Georgia Tech football. They both have national championships under their belts, as does HEISMAN and later Bobby Ross. And they also, Coach Alexander won all 4 Rose Bowl games at the time, which was all 4 bowl games at the time, which was the Rose, Orange, Cotton, and Sugar Bowls. And Coach Bobby Dodd had a 31-game winning streak in the early 50s and won 8 consecutive bowl games. So pretty impressive gentleman. The man in the center, I already mentioned him as part of the Pie Mile race, is George GRIFFIN. He was Dean of Students. He actually came to Georgia Tech at a very young age and then stayed. He started school at 18 and stayed here until his death. Here in the Alumni House, he also worked over here, and we have a plaque on one of our doors at his old office. So 3 very impressive men, but it's hard to be more impressive than George P. Burdell. George is our most accomplished alumnus. He is a huge tradition here, and he is also well known worldwide. He actually he started here in 1927, and you can see got his first degree in 1931. He also holds degrees in most Georgia Tech majors. He studied at Harvard for a little while, and he has documented military service in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Desert Storm. How is that possible? He's timeless and ageless. He's the creation of a student named William Smith. In 1927, he happened to get 2 enrollment forms, and so he went ahead and created George P. Burdell and took the classes for him, and sure enough, George earned the degree right next to Will. And so sure enough, George has endured. And over the years, even with, electronic, everything moving into the virtual space and electronic classwork and all of that, George is still part of our campus. We have had alumni tell us that they've heard his name paged in airports. I just last week was talking with an alum who said that she flew through Turkey one time and through the airport in Istanbul, and she noticed one of the wireless networks she could connect to was George P. Burdell, and she wanted to find that Georgia Tech alum somewhere. So lots of stories around him, and he was just most recently named an honoree in our inaugural 40 under 40 list. So he's just an iconic figure here. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the firsts of people here at Georgia Tech. So the next slide just talks a little bit about Harry Lawson Smith, who was our first graduate. We have the next, there we go. Okay. Henry Lawson Smith was our first graduate. He came here, he actually had a degree from Davidson as well and came here to get a technical degree. There was another gentleman, George Crawford, who also transferred in at the same time. So they both earned their degree at the same time and before everybody else because they came in with credits under their belt. I think one of the coolest things about this, and I don't know if I think that I've got a video here of Lulu Smith Westcott, who here is recorded at 102 years old, talking about her father and coming down and coming to the games. Is it? Oh, shoot. It might not be embedded in there. First, I want to just say that you can see the resemblance between father and daughter. But so here, Lulu Smith Westcott is 102 years old, and she sings a little bit of our fight song. He was a Ramblin Wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. She talks about how they came down from Dalton on the train to watch the football games and sit at the 50-yard line. So I just think it's really cool that we have video content of someone who is connected to the very first degree holder here from Georgia Tech. So the next first is our first woman graduate, and hopefully we are able to play the video here. So Shirley Clements Mewborn was our first one of our first two women who graduated in 1956. Do we have the sound for it?
Tyler, I think you're muted, so then maybe we can hear yours if yours.
It was not necessarily that you knew the answer to everything, but you knew how to analyze a problem and you knew where to go to find the answer.
So Shirley Mewborn and Diane Michelle were our first two women enrollees here, and they were the first two graduates. You can see the photo of them sitting in at commencement together. We did have women on campus and studying on campus before this, but these were our first two women graduates. And I think something that she says there in the video, which is why I wanted it played, is something that resonates both before and after, and it's something that I hear from graduates of all kinds, both before and after this, and something that our youngest alumni, the 2020 grads, will say this now, is that Georgia Tech teaches you how to learn and teaches you how to solve problems, no matter what your degree is in here. So our next is another big first. It's the integration of Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was integrated in 1961 with these three gentlemen that you see here. And it was integrated under Dr. Harrison. It was a peaceful integration, and that was because of pretty extensive planning by Dr. Harrison, who stated outright that he was not going to have any sort of disruption on campus by the integration. And so he worked very hard. He worked with the families of the three incoming students, had them meet with student leaders from campus for the summer before they actually moved onto campus to make sure that they were welcomed, and to make sure that there was no kind of troublemaking or violence. Dr. Harrison made all of the students on campus take 21 hours per quarter in order to be basically too busy to have any issues. That being said, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for an integration. Of course, in the city of Atlanta, there were other things going on. The Klan did come out and protest on the first day of classes. And Dr. Harrison shut that down pretty quickly. And of course, for the students themselves, it wasn't easy. I'm sure it was lonely, and of course, the president might have been supportive, but that didn't mean all the faculty were welcoming or appreciative, or that they didn't face issues with students. But we were able to do it peacefully, but you can also see that they came in 1961, but that didn't mean that they graduated right away. So our first Black graduate was actually in 1965, and that's the next slide. And that was
reason alone, and there was not unanimity of opinion even among the staff at the institution. But there was no outside influence or pressure brought on me. There never has been in connection with the problem of the desegregation of Georgia Tech.
So the next slide is Ronald Yancey, and we'll hear his words too. And he graduated with an electrical engineering degree in 1965. He was a transfer from Morehouse, and he is really an amazing man. He had to deal with so much, being the first, being one of the few Black men on campus. Tyler, can you play the clip?
I tried to take a positive look at it and say, these are good people here. They don't mean me any harm. They were raised a different way. They were raised to believe a certain thing. Just like any boat in the water, there's a wake behind you. You have to, it spreads much further than you can ever imagine. So if you are true to what you believe and true to your ideals, and you make sure you keep it straight, you won't harm people that come behind you.
So a couple of years ago, or not a couple of years ago, just last fall, it seems like maybe forever ago with everything going on, we actually dedicated several statues across campus to the first students to integrate Georgia Tech, and to Ronald Yancey as the first graduate. And they are next to Tech Tower, so if you get a chance to walk around campus at all, you can go to the Harrison Square, named after Dr. Harrison, and see those statues. So a great legacy that those men have left on campus. So kind of a couple of fun things. I mentioned animals that we would see. Yes, we have had bears and lions on campus. You can't even imagine something like that happening these days, but BRUIN the bear, which you see here, was a bear that was gifted to Georgia Tech from the University of Southern California after Georgia Tech won the Rose Bowl against them. In 1929, he came to campus. The students, as you can imagine, taught that bear all kinds of things and fed him all kinds of things. So they taught him how to drink out of a bottle, including a Coca-Cola bottle, and would regularly give him Coca-Cola, and they would regularly give him other things. So there's lots of stories about BRUIN the bear, on drunken cavorting across campus, and caused all kinds of problems. He was chained up underneath the stadium at one point, and he would break free and kind of wander around campus. Here he's seen with a man called Stumpy, who that was his nickname, and he was a student and was a longtime student. It took him many years to graduate, but the bear was his and went with him when he left campus. And then you'll see Clifford the lion here, which this is Joe R., and he bought Clifford the lion from the Atlanta Zoo. They apparently had a bumper crop of cubs one year, and they sold them to citizens. Again, can you even imagine this kind of thing happening these days? So very kind of crazy story about a lion and a bear. And actually, the students would paint Clifford and rent him out to the local school, whose mascot were the tigers. So we actually did have lions, tigers, and bears on campus at one point. The next one is about Sideways the dog, another icon and person in our history. So Sideways was part of campus for a couple of years, starting in 1945. You can see some pictures here. She was thrown from a car near campus, and the students picked her up and brought her to a boarding house on North Avenue. And the dog was really very fond of the boys on campus and would follow them around to classes, would walk out the students onto the field. And she's actually buried on campus next to Tech Tower. So that's that monument there. And the tradition is putting some change on the marker for good luck. So next we'll talk about some of our football traditions and how we became the Ramblin Wrecks and how we became the Yellow Jackets. Because football, we might not be known for our football now necessarily for our performance, but we have a long tradition of football and for many years really dominated in football. So here you see some photos then back in the early days, and then one from just last weekend when we had a fantastic win against Louisville. And then you also see a recreation of a 1918 photo and earlier game this year with the family of the man who took that original photo. So this isn't the first time that we've faced a pandemic on campus. So next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how we became the Wrecks and the White and Gold at the same time. So the whistle was the oldest tradition, and one of our next oldest tradition is actually football and the Ramblin Wrecks. So this group, this is a kind of a fun story. We became the Ramblin Wrecks in 1893, and this team started in 1892. So just a few years, 4 years after we opened as a university. Football was new in the South, surprise, surprise. So people didn't really know how to play it all that well. But we had a team and they were playing. And then a man named Leonard Wood, who is down in the lower right-hand corner of the frame, who looks a little bit older than everybody else. He went to Harvard, came to Atlanta. He was in the military and was stationed at Fort McPherson. And in his write-abouts, he came across this ragtag group of kids at Georgia Tech trying to learn how to play football. Well, of course, he had gone to Harvard where they played football and he knew how to play, and decided to coach them. At about that same time in 1893, UGA, the little university up the street, put out a call that said, we will challenge anyone to play us in a game of football. They were thinking they were big bad stuff, and so Wood said, all right, we're going to go play them. And he happened to grab some of his fellow officers and people in the military who also happened to have gone and played in various colleges. They enrolled at Georgia Tech in one class for one day so that they could be counted as students. They went up to UGA. They played an excellent game and were leading, and of course UGA was not very happy about that. So partway through the second half of the game, got a little unruly, so to say. The crowd started getting a little bit violent. They threw some rocks at the Georgia Tech team, and Leonard Wood said, all right, everybody to the train. They had taken a train up to Athens, and so the team and 130 of the fans jumped back on the train and headed back to Atlanta, got in a wreck on the way. The train hit the back of another freight car, and they unloaded the now destroyed passenger train, jumped on the freight train, headed back to Atlanta, and said they were the Wrecks rambling back home, and that is how the tradition of the Ramblin Wrecks started. This same year is when Gold and White appears. Some fans wore it to a baseball game, a campus baseball game, and so they started wearing it as the team colors. So Gold and White became the team colors pretty early on, even before we were called the Yellow Jackets. And that's the color they would wear with an occasional navy in there. And the next slide, we'll talk about how we became the Yellow Jackets. So John HEISMAN joined us in 1904 and named the Jackets in 1905. John HEISMAN, as you might imagine, is the namesake of the Heisman Trophy, which was named for him in 1935. He was really a fixture in the Atlanta. He became a fixture in the Atlanta community, and interestingly, he was not just a football coach at the time. You coached football part-time, and then you worked in other things the rest of the time. And he owned a theater company, and his wife was an actress and opera singer. And so they came to Atlanta, and he coached and was one of our winningest coaches. He had 16 seasons and went 102, 27, 7. And he is also the reason that we are called the Yellow Jackets. So the team was white and gold, but they wore actual yellow jerseys because gold was hard to find. At the time, they didn't really have a name. Everybody called them, the engineers or the tech boys. And he finally told the Atlanta Constitution newspaper to call them the Yellow Jackets, and that stuck. And within a year, there were sports cartoons depicting a yellow jacket as our mascot, including one where a UGA player was getting stung. And so that's really where that began. And Heisman was with us for many years before heading back to his alma mater. And then, of course, on to an excellent career. So the next one is really just for fun. So this is the Budweiser song, and was started in 1971. Well, how is it that the Budweiser song has become iconic? This is a game day tradition, and so if your students, and if you go to the game with them, you will hear this song. Was introduced after Coach Bobby Dodd told the band that they couldn't play Dixie anymore. And so the band was looking around, and at the time the drinking age was 18, and Budweiser produced a songbook that they used for marketing on college campuses. It's, again, hard to imagine stuff like that happening again today. And so the band picked it up, and it stuck, and it's still around years later, which is pretty crazy. So that's just for fun. And then the next slide is, just have to shout out on the next slide for our 1990 sports. In 1990 was awesome. It was the year that we went to both the Final Four and won the national championship at the same time. And then the next slide shows our field. So the Bobby Dodd Stadium and Grant. So the field itself is called Grant Field. And actually started its life being called the Flats. It was the Flats just because it was the part of campus that was flat. If you've been to campus, you'll know that we're in Atlanta itself is pretty hilly. The Flats, the football field itself was created by dynamiting out the rock in the area. And so the students started calling it the Flats right away, and it was later renamed Grant Field. It first was a field, and the stadium was built, I think, in 1915, and was later called Bobby Dodd Field. It is the longest running, it's the longest continuously used college football field. It's also the winningest college football field, and we've been playing here since 1905. This year, we got another big renovation. It's been renovated over the years. Areas enclosed, stadium seats added. And under some of the new stadium seats, you can see the old stadium seat bricks that were there. So this year we got artificial turf, which is exciting, and got new lighting, and they do fun light shows at the games. So it's really cool. It's a great field, and the reason that it's really part of campus life, and having the artificial turf helps it expand that. So your students will probably have the opportunity to do things like go and watch a concert there, or they do movie nights, which they are still doing to give students something fun to do. So it is a big part of campus life. And as an iconic landmark of campus, that brings us into the next section, which we'll go through pretty quickly so that we'll still have some time for questions. So this is a drone aerial footage of Georgia Tech's campus, looking north and over the Tech Tower. So as you can imagine, campus is ever evolving. We've talked a little bit about the ever evolving traditions, talked about the people that were important to our growth and history. And now we see the campus changing itself. And so just as our field has changed over time, so has our campus. Tech Tower is one of the original buildings, and you can visit the Hill, which is what the area is called, and see some of the oldest buildings on campus, many of them now used for administrative buildings, but some of them still used as classroom and lab space. And then you can see just behind the Tech Tower that tall that tall stack there. Right in front of that is where the whistle is, and it blows from there, blows for class changes and for football game touchdowns. And then you can start to see some of the other tall buildings in the distance. You can see Atlantic Station and the tall buildings in the mid-ground, and then further away you can see Buckhead. Campus, Georgia Tech has really been iconic in the Atlanta landscape, and has really, it's transformed over the years. So we spread into farmlands and fields and forests, and then eventually into neighborhoods, and grew to what it is today across the highway. So one of the biggest reasons that our campus has become what it is now is it was really started to see the change and become what it is now with the 1996 Olympic Village. The Olympics transformed Atlanta in general, and the Olympic Village, it was an incredibly exciting time. I was on campus. I was a student at the time. I worked on campus during the Olympics, which, required security clearance and all of that. But once you were on campus, it was so fun to walk around, so fun to see all the athletes, and just really great. I didn't realize it until this morning when I was looking at the presentation that the workout center that's in the photo up to the right, I actually ran on that treadmill that's just to the edge of the photo, which was super cool. And I ran next to a marathoner and never had ever been so close to someone who ran so fast. It was pretty impressive. But the Olympics really did change campus, and really, many of the dorms that we see on campus and the expansion across all the way to the west side of campus was driven by the Olympics. So the next big change to the campus was Technology Square, which is shown in the next slide. So Technology Square was Georgia Tech expanding across the highway, across 5th Street into the Midtown area, and it transformed Midtown, and it really changed campus as well. Now our campus is much larger than it was, hence the need to change class schedules and that sort of thing. Tech Square includes our Scheller College of Business. It will soon include our School of Industrial and Systems Engineering, which is our number one industrial engineering program in the country. They will be getting a new tower in the Tech Square area. Tech Square also houses several startups, many of which spun out of different incubators associated with Georgia Tech. We also have a new building that's not shown here called the CODA building. It's actually right behind the building that you see with the signage Technology Square in the lower part of this slide. The CODA building is a public-private partnership, and about 50% of it houses Georgia Tech faculty and staff, and the rest are private companies that have opened innovation centers to take advantage of being near Georgia Tech. It has the tallest spiral staircase in the world, and so it's very cool, and I encourage you to take a look at it if you're on campus. And this part of campus is connected to the older part of campus by 5th Street Bridge, which is basically, it's a bridge, cars can pass over it, but it's also a park. And on game day, it transforms into an area where there are tailgates and people are just all over and walking back and forth in normal times, of course, not during pandemic times. But it's really cool, and actually is a model of what is to come. The city and Georgia Tech have been working on a project that will cap the interstate through here, and will actually turn all of this area into parklands and new bridges. So imagine this kind of crossing all of the highway from 10th to North Avenue. So as you can see, the story always continues. And I think that's it for the actual pictures. Oh, no, just a couple of other buildings that continue to evolve campus. We continue to add buildings and renovate. We have added maker spaces in many of our buildings over the years. And we have the Candida Living Building, which is an experimental green living building on campus that is actually net positive for energy consumption. We've got sculptures all over campus, so we've got some really amazing things that happen across campus. And as you can see from the start, where we started with the whistle in 1888 on the old building that still stands, or the whistle still stands and still blows, next to Tech Tower, which still stands. You can now see photos of our newest buildings just opened in the last year. So very exciting and always changing. And I think I swung us in right under time so I could answer a couple of questions because I think it's a lot to learn, and I know you're probably overwhelmed. If you want to learn more, we do have a website, livinghistory.gtalumni.org, and you can watch a ton more video content and listen to a lot more stories directly from alumni. You can also visit gtalumni.org for a virtual tour that we have up, or to learn other things about Georgia Tech. So we have a few minutes for questions, I think.
Thank you so much, Janet, for sharing that wonderful presentation, sharing so many great stories and traditions that we pride ourselves in so much here at Georgia Tech. We do have one question. Just says, thanks for the great presentation, fascinating history. Can you say anything about the possible future plans for Georgia Tech? Not sure. Maybe they're speaking to new buildings that may be on the way, or I'm not sure.
Sure. Well, I think from what you could see from the presentation that innovation is kind of the name of the game, and we're always changing. So there are some of the big things that are happening now, and I didn't mention this during the presentation, but some of the big changes from a facilities and building standpoint is we are going through a massive renovation of the student center and an addition to the student center. So we've got a new exhibition hall, which will be presentation space and so forth. We also just completed a renovation of the library. We are building a new tower. It hasn't broken ground, it's still in the planning phases, but we will be breaking ground for a new tower in Tech Square that will house the Industrial and Systems Engineering School and an expansion of the Scheller Business School. So continued changes there. And then as far as other changes, I think, there's a lot of innovation happening as a result of being in a virtual world right now, which I think will be, will continue over time. And so, yeah, Georgia Tech is progress and service is our motto, and I think that you can see that from our history as well. Connor, is there anything from a changing campus that you might want to add?
No, I think you kind of covered it all. Lots of exciting stuff happening, though, for sure.
And Connor, I'm sure you can agree that even since you graduated in 2017, campus has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, it already has. We at the Alumni Association, our office is just off campus, so we still walk through campus to go get food every now and then, just go for a nice walk, because it's such a pretty campus. And yeah, there's so many things still constantly changing. Janet talked about the whistle. Even the whistle blows at a different time than whenever I was here. I graduated 3 years ago. So lots of changing things, really exciting.
Connor, if you can just talk about just your experience as an alumni, and any advice that you would give to parents who have a current undergrad student, just from an alumni perspective, on what to look forward to after graduation.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech is a really tight-knit alumni community. I'm a little biased because I work for the Alumni Association. We do have lots of programs to get involved post-graduation with our networks and groups, which are regional networks all throughout the country. No matter, usually whichever state you live in, you can probably find a network pretty close to you. where we have, weekly game watchings during the football season, or just events that take place throughout the year, trivia nights, game nights, things like that, that I know are really fun. They're very very active. We send out emails for them to advertise these events, weekly, and the people that are in these communities love them. They're very tight knit, and I think that sort of just describes Georgia Tech alumni in general. All the ones I know in my life are, we have a lot of affinity for Georgia Tech, and I think that that's a bond that we all share, and I think that that's something that's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Connor. And I know that, as parents and family members who are on the webinar, I know that students may not be thinking about their alumni experience now, but Georgia Tech is one of the few schools in the country and in the world that has one of the most powerful alumni bases worldwide, and you can benefit so much from it no matter what city you get a job in, what country. Georgia Tech is everywhere. Janet, if you wanted to speak more on that about why it's important to really connect, to your new city that you move in when you get a new job.
Sure. So that is a great question, and we have some opportunities for the students to get connected with our alumni while still a student, which offers them an opportunity to see what the opportunities are when they graduate. And it's a really powerful opportunity to hear experiences, to have mentors, and that continues, and that idea of connection continues after graduation. And the Georgia Tech network is pretty powerful. Georgia Tech alumni like to hire Georgia Tech alumni and graduates, and so it's really the connection points, not only kind of fulfill that social and nostalgia piece for campus, but it also provides an opportunity to grow professionally, and we do provide a lot of different services for professional development, as in addition to the social aspects. But it's just the alumni network is tight, and so you can see from this presentation, the history and traditions really bring us together, and it's a rallying point for us. But I think one of the things that when you ask the alumni what they really get out of being an alum, it's that network of other alumni. They love the traditions, it's a way of holding us together, but they are much more focused on the community of Georgia Tech folks.
Thank you so much, both of you, for just taking the time out your schedule to be with us. Parents and families, please know that today's webinar is recorded. It will be posted on our website, parents.gatech.edu, under the Stay Connected tab under virtual recordings within the next 24 hours. So that way you can view it and share it with your family and friends, and also your student. Such great information. Please join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. We'll be talking more about alumni engagement and what that means and what that looks like for your student post-graduation. Like I said, you definitely want to take advantage of this network and this base that we have. Georgia Tech is so powerful and so strong all across the world. But with that being said, thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m.
Thank you guys so much.